Ooh. There's real gold, frankincense, and myrrh in the children's room, but don't you adults go running back there. It's not that much now. The BBC Sky at Night magazine. Here's the headline. Scientists have found the purest, most pristine object in the universe, and it shouldn't even exist. Astronomers have discovered a primeval star that is the most pristine ever found. Thought to be a relic from the universe's earliest days, it has far fewer heavy elements like carbon, oxygen, and iron than stars seen today. The star is mostly composed of hydrogen and helium, closely resembling the first ever stars that formed after the Big Bang. These were thought to have been massive, hot, and short-lived, and responsible for forging heavier elements through nuclear fission. They go on to say that this star, they believe, has 20 times less impurities in it than our sun does. And it's a candidate, therefore, for one of the earliest stars ever found, and they're wondering how on earth this thing still exists, because it should have burned up by now. Now, this is, I think, fascinating. It's not strictly germane to what we're doing tonight, but it is in two big ways. There are two ways in which the feeling of that is the kind of thing we're talking about tonight. The first one is simply the simplicity, the freshness of a beginning. That simple, incredible purity of that energy of those stars. Creation, an act of love by God. And that freshness comes through. The second one is the bigger, and that's this. Those astronomers who are in wonder and saying, ooh, wow, are having the same feeling that the Magi had. Here's tonight's headline. Magi have found the purest, most pristine object in the universe, and it shouldn't even exist. Only that object isn't an object. It's a person. Friends, we're celebrating the Epiphany this evening. Epiphany is a word that means that the light shines, the glory is revealed. And a light in the sky testifies to these Magi, these astronomers. We talked about them some a few weeks ago. A light testifies to them. The cosmos gets in on the celebration, and they move. It's both the biggest picture of all, because it's literally cosmic, and it's incredibly personal. It's a star or comet that tells the news of Jesus' birth. It's light from beyond that is also visible and touches us. And pagan philosophers get up and move at great cost. And they do it because, on the one hand, being in a pagan society, they've been stuck in the cyclical. And if you stay stuck in the cyclical long enough, eventually you just want to fade off into oblivion because you wonder if it goes anywhere. But on the other hand, they've been stuck in the false linear of an empire that proclaims its own future. And they are hoping for more than either one of those. And they see this and they respond to it. And they come, and the local empire sublord is pushed into a place of panic, which he was actually probably right to be. He didn't handle it well. God is reaching out. God is coming near. God is weaving God's own self into the story. God is coming to claim God's realm for God's self again. It's beyond cyclical. It goes somewhere. It has a beginning and a culmination, a source and a fulfillment. But it is cyclical. God deems it to be good, creates it in seasons. It's linear, but it's beyond a linear that leaves one behind and forgets about it. Somewhere it brings everyone along in it. The second person of the Holy Trinity, acting in love for us and in trust of the other two persons of the Holy Trinity, comes into the world. It's right that light should show it. In 1 John, we're told that God is light. Now, some of you have heard me say this before. I think it's worth doodling on. It's worth remembering. There are only two 3-word, I call them bumper sticker sized, descriptions of God in the Bible. There are only two. Anybody want to guess at them? God is light and God is love. Now, I did a bit of research on this just to follow it up because I thought there were a few others and I wanted to get it right. I did the Greek New Testament. I did the Greek Old Testament. I didn't do the Hebrew because Hebrew doesn't work that way. I don't think you could find them there. It's not the way it works. There's lots and lots and lots of them that are close. And they're all good. They're all fantastically good, but they're not bumper sticker sized, right? You know how it is when you pull up behind the Subaru. It's not as true now as it used to be back in the 70s. You pull up behind the Subaru at the stoplight, and they've got these bumper stickers on them that have, full sentences. And you get half interested, and for once the light changes when you wish it hadn't. But it's a useless bumper sticker, right? Because you can't read the whole thing. So anyway, bumper sticker, 3 words. God is boom. There's lots of them that are so close. God is a consuming fire. God is a merciful God. God is a righteous judge. God is the king of all the earth. God is my helper, my son, my shield. God is God. God is God of gods. So good. They're all worth contemplation. And they don't make the 3-word bumper sticker list. In the past, I've said there were 3. I said one of them is God is spirit. It's close, super close, the closest, but it doesn't actually work the way we're giving it in the, bless you, it is true anyway, but we're not giving it that way. God's holiness is certainly in the mix. We're never told it that simply. It's not God is power. It's not God is truth. God has power, and that's important. He's called the first and the source, the beginning, the ruler. God's trustworthy and true, but we're never given those in that way. God is light and God is love. They're both in 1 John, which makes sense. It would be in a letter in the New Testament, and it would be from John. John's the one who would say. God is light, John says, and in God is no darkness at all. Now, I'm going to hunch that you know that's good news, but it's a bit abstract, right? How does it come to us? What does it mean? Where does it settle down for us? Dear friends, it means that in this severely askew world in which we live, there's one anyway, who isn't lying. There's one who isn't trying to sell you something. There's one who isn't passive-aggressive. There's one who isn't hiding behind corporate layers of dehumanization. There's one who isn't creepy when you get close enough. There's one who is listening. There's one who does care. There's one who can afford to give love freely, generously, graciously, overwhelmingly. There's one who is reliable and able and worthy. There's just one who would be completely and utterly transparent with us if only we could take it. But we can't. 1 Timothy, God, it is He who is the blessed and only sovereign, the King of kings, the Lord of lords, who alone has immortality, who dwells in unapproachable light, whom no one has ever seen or can see. To Him be honor and eternal dominion. Amen. This is indescribably good. It means that at the core, the root, the deepest, whatever, of all that is love and energy and vibrancy and inexhaustible being. And that love and that being wants to know you and wants you to know that love. It wants you to accept that and be in it and walk in it. We can trust God. We can live in that foundation, trust that God is real, and that, friends, is living in that light. And when we live standing firmly in that light, we can breathe, we can settle down, we can open up, we can be a little more who we are and real and honest, and we can be a little more pure in that sense, a little simpler as well. I know, I do. Believe me, I know. Sometimes that inaccessibility of light, the fact that God is so bright and so light as to be inaccessibly bright, sometimes that leaves us wondering. Sometimes we wonder if it's really that God is in cahoots with the darkness. And there's this incredible promise verse in the Bible in Romans 8 that God works in the midst of all things, right? God works in the midst of all circumstances for good. And sometimes it feels like, tell me if I'm the only one. I don't think I am. Sometimes it feels like a gotcha verse, all right? And we wonder, what does this mean? Where is the good? How could God even be in this anyway? It's so horrible. And we're told that somehow God works through this to bring good. And sometimes it just doesn't make any sense. Now, don't misunderstand me. I am super grateful. I'm truly super grateful for the promise that that verse holds. And it's carried me through a lot, and it carries me still. And I've told you guys before, and I think the case is easy to make. Romans 8, which is where that comes from, and Romans 12 are the great two stanchions, and the rest of the New Testament hangs on them, the way that the Zachem Bridge has two big stanchions, right? We talked about this before. It reach down into the muck of life, they reach up to the heavens, and the whole bridge hangs on them. That's the way Romans 8 and 12 are, the whole New Testament. They're the most amazing insights, digesting what Jesus is and what it means in all of the New Testament, which is the place where we are told what it was and what it meant. God does not bring the darkness. God does not cause the darkness. God has not set the darkness on you to get you. But God won't cheat it either. God's not going to cheat our createdness. We live in time, in process. We learn, we grow, we experience, we're purified, we're humbled. We learn to trust. God bears with us. God walks the long walk. And God works in that Romans 8 kind of way. The thing I think we sometimes forget is what that goodness is in that verse. That goodness is that we are being formed into the image of Jesus. That's the way that one is defined. Jesus is the human being reset. So if we just take a few steps with that, then being formed into the image of Jesus means we are being formed into our authentic true selves that God has in mind for who we should be, would be most beautiful if we were when God dreamed us up in the first place. And so God works with the circumstances that we are in to form us ever more into the image of Jesus. It's fantastic, but the problem is that Jesus put up with a lot. It's fantastic, but the problem is that Jesus suffered at a profoundly deep level. Paul says in Romans 8 that if we suffer with him, we will be glorified with him as well. It's not a quid pro quo. It's just sort of that kind of reasonable spirituality you find in the New Testament. If we participate in ourselves fully in his self, then we will, of course, be brought along into where he is because we're in him and he's in us. It's spiritual organic. It just sort of would be that way. So be in him, be him in us. So the Magi went, they found the purest, most pristine object in the universe, and it shouldn't even exist. is a baby, maybe it's a toddler by then, in a cave with poor parents who had no power. They had prayer, they had humility, they had hope, they had incredible courage. They had the ability to keep the plot and hold the story. The Magi brought gifts. And you know this, but it needs to be said every year. One of them brought gold, or they brought gold. There might have been 10 of them, we don't know. They brought gold because Jesus is the King. And one day every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. They brought frankincense because Jesus is priest. Jesus, as the human being reset, embodies the relationship we were meant to have, where our communion is with God, who is spirit and loves us, and with the whole of the world that God made. And in a wonderful kind of a way, we're mediators of that as priests. We were meant to be. And when we are healed and when we are like Jesus, we move into that, and it's a wonder and it's delight. They brought myrrh. And myrrh was an embalming spice for a dead body. And that, friends, is the proof. It's the proof we do need sometimes, that God is with us. Because God took it on God's own self. This is the cross, prefigured in the baby Jesus. They brought myrrh for the baby. God is light, and in God is no darkness at all. Friends, we can trust God. We can live in that foundation. And in that we trust God and be real, that is living in the light. Let's pray. I invite you to just take a minute, just take a few seconds, and wherever you wish, you could be brighter, simpler, purer in a sense in your inner being. Just bring that to mind. Don't beat yourself up, but just bring it to mind. Offer it up to the Lord. In your ability to relate to others, whatever it is, just bring that to mind and say, God, would you shine your light here? Would you let me enter your light in this part of my life?